which is our next date. We'll be at the Wiley Hotel, and our guest speaker will be Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft. But today, we're very privileged to have with us Christopher Ripley, who is the president and chief executive officer of Sinclair Broadcast Group. And welcome.
Thank you.
Our guest took that position in January after 3 previous years as chief financial officer of the company. Before joining Sinclair, Mr. Ripley was involved in investment banking, financial analysis with such companies as Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette, Prime Ventures, and most recently your big company was UBS, Global Media Group. So we're going to have a little Q&A session, and a little later we'll try to give some people in the audience a chance to be heard as well. You know, it's an interesting situation that you've stepped into, if I may say so, Chris. You're following in the shoes of a very well-known and a long-time serving head of Sinclair, and who is now sticking around as, of course, chairman of the board of the company. So how does that feel?
Is that a trick question, Dick? First off, just let me say one thing about Dick Wiley, because we're going to talk about ATSC 3.0 here, I'm sure, as we sit down and chat. But as many of you probably know, Dick was instrumental in getting ATSC 1.0 through and up and running. Without 1.0, there would be no 3.0. So, Dick, I want to thank you for all your efforts.
Appreciate it, but I do think it's time for a new standard.
Yes, we'll talk more about that. We agree. So, yeah, listen, it's an interesting situation, a very interesting company, Sinclair. If you go to the headquarters, it is filled full of very, very long tenured employees, people that literally, there's one fellow that's been there for more than 45 years, if you can believe that, and it's not uncommon to meet people that are 20 plus year people. So very much a family business from that perspective, but a public company and a big broadcaster. And what really strikes you as a newcomer to Sinclair is the passion and the commitment to the company. Most of the employees there would literally do anything for Sinclair, and they really believe in the mission and believe in the company. And joining a group like that and being chosen to precede an iconic figure with just incredible presence and vision is just so humbling and honor. I'm honored to have that position for such a fantastic company.
Well, now, you, of course, had a strong financial background, as I described earlier, but now you're stepping into the role as the chief executive officer. How's that been, that transition?
So, I think from the outside, people saw me coming in about 3 years ago, being CFO. They were actually quite surprised how quickly this transition happened. I guess, like I said, I'm not as smart as I look. But in all honesty, it actually was a multi-year transition. It wasn't abrupt. It was part of the plan. And so it hasn't been that hard because we've been doing it over multiple years. And so, what I would add to that is, this is the easy part. What I see is the more difficult part for Sinclair and the industry as a whole, and that's TV broadcasting media, is just the incredible challenges we have ahead. And you've got the internet basically vacuuming up every industry that there is, and media will not be exempt from that. And when you sit and look at what Sinclair does, you need to only think about what is happening in the general media landscape to understand what we're doing. And that's really the challenge. The challenge for going to CFO or CEO is easy. The bigger challenge will be transforming this industry over the next 5 to 10 years.
As I understand it, David Smith is going to spend a good bit of his time in the future concentrating on the possibility of a new transmission standard that we talked about. And that, of course, is an area in which Sinclair and its subsidiary One Media have been major factors. Are you also going to be involved in that? I would assume you would be.
I'm heavily involved in ATSC 3.0. It really is a part of everything that we do. And when you think about 3.0, it really touches every facet of the business. So you can't be in the business and not be involved in 3.0. And we've been big champions of moving to the new standard. And it really will be revolutionary for the entire industry.
Well, in that regard, what do you see as the major advantages for Sinclair, for the broadcast industry, and indeed for the viewing public of adopting next-gen television, as we call it?
So for the new standard, I'd like to break it down to 5 key benefits for Sinclair or the industry, really the same thing. One is it will be a mobile-first standard, so it's been optimized to hit small personal devices with small antennas and a light lift for battery. It's IP end-to-end, so no longer will TV broadcast be a separate technology stack on an island onto its own. They'll support a hybrid environment, so as a consumer, you'll be watching a piece of content. You won't know whether it comes in through the public internet or it comes over the air. It'll be a seamless hybrid environment. It will allow for targeted ads, which obviously has an economic benefit to the broadcasters, but also a viewing benefit to the consumers, since your ads are going to be tailored to your taste. And it will allow for subscription-based models, a la Netflix, to exist over the platform, and will increase the amount of content and data that any given broadcaster can transmit by about 4 to 5x of what we do today. So those are the key benefits for the industry. From the consumer side, it really increases the amount of choice that people have for mobile video, and will include a robust free offering, as TV broadcast always has and will continue to do. And it will also increase the amount of personalized content and hyper-localized content that are available to the consumers. So it'll be a dramatically improved consumer experience in terms of content, and when you really just think about it in terms of the experience is going to change. It won't be like watching conventional TV. The type of experience that you're used to having on the internet will be available over the air without an additional internet connection. So you're going to have a much different look and feel, much different user experience in the future through ATSC 3.0. It won't be TV as you know it today. And furthermore, it will be transmitted to the general public at a much lower cost than conventional wireless systems today, or even the ones you imagine in tomorrow. And that drives a savings to the consumer, which we think is going to be, will massively increase consumption overall in wireless video.
Well, it all sounds good, and I do agree with that, but there's one problem, right? And that is not backward compatible. So what do you see? Are major transition problems here, going from 1.0 to 3.0?
So that's probably the single biggest challenge left on 3.0 is the transition. We've gotten over the standards part. We're in front of the FCC. Cross your fingers, that should go well. The transition is left, and that's going to require a lot of cooperation amongst broadcasters. It's one of the reasons we've created the Spectrum Consortium with Univision and Nexstar. But we have a solid plan where we will simulcast both 1.0 and 3.0 at the same time, so that you could support both standards simultaneously and allow for receivers to penetrate the marketplace. And at some point in the future, when all the TVs are 3.0, you'll sunset 1.0. And so it'll be a smooth transition. It won't require public funding, unlike the last transition, and it'll just require some cooperation amongst the broadcasters, which
At the local level, at the market level.
At the
Which
market
could,
level.
some could go smoothly and some maybe not so smoothly, right?
It'll literally have to be a market by market basis, but as you can tell from some of our recent announcements, we're getting a lot of momentum on the consortium side, and that will be the bridge for which the cooperation happens.
Chris, of course, the biggest matter on your platter right now is the nearly $4 billion acquisition of Tribune. And the question I guess I have is, and everybody here would have, is what do you see ahead as far as the likely timing and the likely result of government consideration of that merger?
So we think we'll close around year end, about 6 months or so for the DOJ to complete their review. We expect the FCC to be shortly thereafter. And at the end of the day, when you take a look at the entire industry, the entire media industry, media and communications industry, TV broadcast is a pimple in the entirety of that industry. We're the largest TV broadcaster by far, but yet we are so tiny compared to AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, Charter, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and all those names that I just said are people that we interface with. They're either customers or vendors or competitors, or would-be competitors. So that's the ecosystem we play in, and the reality is we look around and we find ourselves the shortest of everyone at that table, and that's one of the reasons why, we just sort of scratch our heads from a regulatory basis, why there could be any grounds to prevent such consolidation from happening. When if it doesn't happen, we'll simply cease to exist as an industry. And so, thankfully, we've got Chairman Pai, who's launched an action to look at these antiquated rules, which we think has artificially tipped the playing field away from TV broadcast to the point of making us uncompetitive. So that's one of the reasons why we're optimistic on the regulatory.
Just harkening back to the ATS 3.0 for a moment, if the Tribune acquisition is later approved, as you suggested it might be, how will that affect the prospect for the new standard in terms of developing a nationwide platform?
Well, it's going to help. ATSC 3.0 is going to roll out, regardless of what Sinclair does. It's an industry-wide, broad-based effort. But getting, Tribune under the same family will help us expedite the rollout and will expedite our ability to get to a national footprint, which we're doing through acquisition, but also through this consortium. And the significance of that is not so much in the 5 core benefits that I listed up before 3.0, it's in what I term advanced services. My prediction for ATSC 3.0 is that it ultimately will not end up being used for what everyone thinks it's going to be used today, which is mobile video or just video to the home. It will ultimately be used for another purpose. It's sort of like when Apple opened the App Store, could you have guessed what apps would be on there today and what the best-selling apps would be on today? You had no clue, ultimately, what that ended up bringing to the marketplace. And just to give you an example, practical example, just about 6 months ago, we did a test in Ann Arbor with the auto manufacturers. And they were excited about delivering 3-dimensional maps to autonomous cars, which are very, very big files. They need to be updated regularly. And if you can't do that under any sort of LTE construct because it would just be the files are too big. So it's a perfect use case for 3.0 that we didn't know even existed until 6 months ago, and has nothing to do with video. And so getting to a nationwide network, either through acquisition or through consortium, will facilitate those types of advanced services, which as we move into the world of the Internet of Things, I think will be increasingly a big part of the business.
Of course, the Sinclair Tribune marriage, if it occurs, give you a reach of 72% perhaps of the nationwide audience and maybe 233 stations or whatever it turns out to be. What do you say to the critics who are concerned about the size and scope of that merger? Maybe you've already answered this, but you can...
Well, I did in a way. I mean, those who criticize it, I just don't really understand the economics of the media industry or how incredibly small we are relative to everyone else that we're competing with. And what I think they don't understand either is the competitive pressures in the local marketplace, what it takes to deliver local news, local services, free services that I might add, to the public. That takes a lot of resources, and you need scale in order to properly resource and continue to provide those free services. And if we don't, those services will cease to exist. And deals like Tribune enable us to invest more in those local services. And furthermore, create more competition from a consumer perspective for wireless data and video distribution.
Now, there's a number of markets, perhaps 14, in which the Tribune has a station and Sinclair has a station. Is it reasonable to expect the possibility of some divestitures in this instance?
So as we said in our call, there may be some divestitures related to this merger. When you take a look at every one of those markets, there's really no competitive reason to have a divestiture. But by the strict standards which the DOJ has operated under for the last 20 or 30 years, you would conclude that some would need to be divested. But there's no shortage of examples within TV broadcast of markets that are much more concentrated than those markets that we're going to be creating, those 14, and no issues. And the reason why there's no issues in those markets is that quite a long time ago, we've left the era of just TV broadcasters competing with other TV broadcasters. We compete with cable for advertising. We compete with the internet for advertising. We compete with a plethora of other local ad businesses, but yet the market still gets defined as TV broadcast ads. And so as soon as if you were just to add cable into the definition of the market, there would be no divestitures required in any of those 14 overlap markets. So again, sort of an antiquated rule that may create some divestitures, but we'll have to let the regulators, do their process and decide.
Chris, you've already pointed out that the Tribune acquisition was really facilitated by the Commission's decision to restore the 50% discount. Do you think that it's against a holistic review of that with that discount and the national reach cap? Do you think the cap should be changed? The 39%, should it be raised? And if so, by what amount?
So we look at it just on a very simple level. There's no other industry that is regulated by the FCC that has a national cap. And so from a fairness perspective, we don't see why this cap is needed. The cap was originally put in place to actually protect the affiliates from the networks. And now we're an affiliate saying we don't need a cap anymore. So that the usefulness of the cap is it's outlived its usefulness. And I understand that there is a debate as to whether the FCC can change it. Regardless, they've launched a review to look at it, and we're happy they've done that.
Okay. Let's say the merger is ultimately approved. What's the company's real plans for programming, which is, of course, the key? And, for example, would you anticipate a new national broadcast network?
So that's an interesting question because we actually have already launched several new broadcast networks over the last couple of years. A year and a half ago, we launched Comet. It's now in 80% of the country. And about a month ago, we launched Charge and TBD, and they're sort of in half the country and building. And these are no different than any other broadcast network. They're entirely new. They don't have original programming yet. They're mainly library content. So we're already launching new broadcast networks, and we would expect to launch new broadcast networks even more post-Tribune. As it relates to what people conventionally think of our business, which is the affiliate business, the ABC, NBC, Fox, and CWs, that business is going to continue to be a robust business for us. We don't envision creating a new broadcast network to compete directly with those networks. But what we do envision happening is what we call an overlay network. And that's where you would take all your ABCs or your NBCs or your CWs. You take the day parts that we control, which I think the general public sort of doesn't really comprehend exactly how much we program of the day. It's quite significant, but it's all over the place. Every market's different. And so one of our strategies will be to create overlay networks that supplement and enhance the existing networks that we already have and get a more higher quality content with greater consistency across those networks.
What specifically would the Tribune merger do for these services that you pointed out?
Well, at a simplest level, it's wider distribution. We'll be in 72% of the country, as you mentioned. And at the end of the day, if you don't have distribution, you're nowhere. And that's going to help both our new broadcast networks, our overlay networks, and then also just our original programming efforts. And it also justifies spending more on programming, spending more on original programming in general, which includes local news and local programming. And when you have a bigger platform that you can exploit that programming on, it opens up a bunch of possibilities when it comes to programming. And I would expect to see Sinclair become more vertically integrated in content post-Tribune.
You didn't mention it, but I'm going to hope that you'll continue to promote the tennis channel, which is my favorite.
All right.
Let's turn to news, which is a very important area. What plans does the company have in that area?
So we have a very keen focus on news. As a local broadcaster, local programming, which is predominantly news, but also includes sports and other interests, is, I believe, the most defendable part of our business. As you look forward and you see what's happening with Apple entering original programming, Facebook, you can see that the network-provided parts of the ecosystem, including prime time and maybe in sports, are at risk. Local is the jewel that is, in TV broadcast. So we cultivate it. We really focus on it, and we've rolled up our sleeves on all of our acquisitions to improve the quality of the programming, improve the ratings of it. We spread best practices through all of our stations. I think in both Fisher and Albritton, we invested over $40 million in those news operations after those acquisitions. We've added local news in many of the stations that we bought, and it's showing up in our ratings and performance. And further to that, it's not just about being on broadcast. We're leading the industry in terms of other platforms, which include digital and OTT, and we really have a strategy of being the dominant local content provider on every platform. And that even extends to national with our Circa brand, which is our digital-only national news brand. I encourage you to check it out. It's a great site.
Chris, what do you say to the critics who decry your alleged conservative bent when it comes to news?
Well, it's no secret that some of our shareholders have a conservative bent, but that doesn't define who Sinclair is as a company and as a broadcaster. The TV broadcast model, as I mentioned earlier, is the real jewel of it is the local connection to the community. And the strategy behind local news is to have as broad appeal as possible. That's why local news ratings will dwarf anything that cable news generates on a market-by-market basis. So many more people watch local news than cable, and I don't think people really appreciate how big that difference is. And that's because cable news focuses on a niche. They're servicing a specific niche, and they're doing that with opinions rather than news by and large. Local news is focused on facts, it's focused on broad appeal. If we were as conservative and slanted as we've been accused of, we would suffer financially. And our news would not be as well rated as it is. And you only look at the success we're having here in DC with WJLA, having great success in terms of improving the quality of the product, improving our share in this marketplace. And it's not about having a certain message to a niche population. It's about having broad appeal to our audiences.
All right, you have all these stations. You may have more with the Tribune. You've got Next Gen TV. It seemed to me that would keep any CEO fully occupied. But what else is on the possible future agenda of Sinclair?
Well, we do have several initiatives, as I mentioned, on the digital front, and in our marketing services. So, in DC, we tend to focus a lot on local and on our spectrum assets, but we also have an incredible infrastructure of salespeople and relationships in these local marketplace. And we're focused on evolving that into more of a marketing services organization. And we're focused on making sure that our content, which is on our TV broadcast stations, can exist on any platform at any time.
Would Sinclair want to acquire more additional local television stations if FCC regulation permitted it?
Well, we're just trying to get through this transaction. But as I mentioned before, the industry overall is still way undersized relative to the players that we counteract with. And that's really the punchline. And that's why if we don't do it, someone else will. It's sort of the commercial inevitability of the ecosystem, which we didn't create, but we live in nonetheless.
Would you specifically like to see the local television station ownership rule change, and if so, how?
Well, we've been on record saying that all the rules, for the most part, that govern this industry are circa 1960, 1970, so antiquated, for a bygone era. And so we welcome any sort of relief from that front. And if that means that some of the local ownership rules are reformed or go away, then that's definitely positive from our perspective.
We've been talking about broadcasting, and of course that's where Sinclair is best known, but you have other related businesses. For example, you've made acquisitions in recent years of electronics and antenna companies. Can you tell us about that and how that may relate to Sinclair's future?
So we're